Hello, Rotor Ballers. I'm Thunder Dan Palyo, and I'm here to bring you my Week 2 NFL DFS plays. These are my favorite three players at each position, and at the end, I'm going to give you my favorite single player at each position that I think is an absolute must-play in a lot of your NFL DFS lineups on DraftKings or FanDuel this Sunday. Let's start with quarterbacks, and let's talk about three guys today who have really good matchups. That's Matthew Stafford facing the Atlanta Falcons, Derek Carr against the Arizona Cardinals, and Carson Wentz against the Detroit Lions. Now, I want to go down and save some money and play Carson Wentz after he threw 4 touchdowns last week, but I think the best quarterback play is going to be Derek Carr against an Arizona secondary that got absolutely demolished by Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs last week. Derek Carr, even at a loss, put up a lot of yards, played pretty well, had a few turnovers, but should be able to carve out a lot of stats for DFS this week. Love pairing him up with Davante Adams. Talk about him here in a minute. All right, on to the running back position. My three top backs this week are Saquon Barkley against the Carolina Panthers, Javonte Williams against the Houston Texans, and Darrell Henderson Jr. against the Atlanta Falcons. Saquon, to me, is the top overall play at running back. We saw what he did last week. We saw the increase in touches. 18 carries was the most he had since last season, in any game last season but one. And, of course, 6 catches as well. We saw what he could do. We saw the big play capability from him, and I think he's going to be the absolute top play in the slate against Carolina, especially after what we saw. We saw them last week give up a lot of rushing yards to the Cleveland Browns. Javonte Williams is priced in the mid-tier, and I don't know if I'll make my cash lineup, but you have to love how involved he was for Denver. I know it's a split with him and Melvin Gordon, but he got most of the passing game work, 11 total targets, right, and averaged more than 5 yards a carry in the run game. So it's a good matchup for him and Gordon both as they face a Houston team that gave up a ton of rushing yards to Jonathan Taylor last week. Henderson is the must-play value in cash, way too cheap for his role. We saw him get most of the carries and dominate those touches, with Cam Akers being the big loser there. We know the Rams are going to score a lot of points this week, and I think Henderson's going to be very much involved in their game plan. Let's move to the wide receiver position, where we're talking about Davante Adams, as I mentioned, against Arizona. Amon-Ra St. Brown against Washington Commanders, and Michael Pittman Jr. once again against Jacksonville. The top play here has to be Adams. He had 17 targets in week 1 to lead all receivers on the slate. We saw him get in the end zone. We saw him establish that rapport with Carr right away, and we know that this is a good matchup for them. I think Pittman is a great tournament play because people are going to be off him. His price went up. We saw him command a ton of targets week 1, get in the end zone as well as the main receiver for Matt Ryan in Indianapolis. St. Brown was sneaky last week, and I had a lot of GPP exposure to him. I think he's safe in cash games. He is priced up a bit, but he had 12 targets, 8 catches. We know that Goff likes him, and I think that we're going to see a potential shootout there with Detroit and Washington. All right, let's finish up with tight ends. At the tight end position, we're going to save some money this week. We don't have any Travis Kelce's on the slate, right, to spend money on. So we're going to go down to Tyler Higbee against Atlanta, Pat Freiermuth against New England, and Albert O, I'll spare me trying to pronounce his last name, against Houston. Higbee had 11 targets, which was kind of a surprise week 1. I don't expect that to keep going, but we know that he played pretty much all the snaps at tight end. We know that he's usually pretty involved, and certainly is a red zone threat as well. We also saw double-digit targets for Freiermuth, and I was big on him. I know that the new Steelers quarterback really likes him and is looking his way. I think he's potential for another big week as well. Albert O only ended up with 5 catches on 6 targets, but that is an offense that we're going to want pieces of, and he's incredibly cheap there as well. So now what I'm going to do is go back and recap my top play at each position. These are guys who I feel like you should be smashing into your cash games. You should be overexposed to in GPPs. Make sure you have a lot of these guys in your lineups come Sunday. At quarterback, Derek Carr against Arizona. He's going to torch that secondary. They're going to throw all over them. Get Carr in your lineup. At running back, it has to be Saquon Barkley. I don't care how chalky he is. Play him. He's awesome. He looks great. He's going to get his touches. At wide receiver, Davante Adams, pair him up with Carr in GPPs. Make sure he's in your cash games. He's getting a ton of targets. He's got a great opportunity against Arizona. And at tight end, for me, it's got to be Pat Freiermuth. I think his role in this Pittsburgh offense isn't going away anytime soon. I think he's a pretty safe play. He finds his ways into the end zone most weeks. Give Pat Freiermuth a look as your main tight end on DraftKings or FanDuel. All right, and don't forget, pay down on defense. Always pay down on defense. This is Thunder Dan Palyo saying good luck in all your contests this week. And thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe to Rotoballer on YouTube. Make sure you check out Rotoballer for all your fantasy football, DFS, and betting needs.